teams who have hit rock bottom in 2017. There's a lot to choose from here. Kurt, your entry.
My entry is, as the soccer guy in this newsroom, is the United States national team. We have a few players here in Toronto, obviously Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, so we kind of felt what they were feeling after that big loss in Trinidad. This is a team that hasn't missed the World Cup since 1990. It's a team that expects to be in the World Cup because of the region they play in. Yep. Arguably the easiest region to qualify from. They had an up and down qualifying campaign. They fired their coach. They thought that would fix things. Just needed to get it a win in Trinidad, which was ranked like 1 millionth in the world at the time. They go down there and they lose 2-1. And it's sparked this huge referendum on U.S. soccer and just the disappointment down there. The level of outrage. People are wondering how much it's going to set back U.S. soccer for years to come.
Well, the U.S. are just good at everything, right? And then there's the Italians, another team that experienced some difficulties this year.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the comparison. With Italy, though, they did have a group with Spain in it, so of course Spain beats them. They go through automatically, and then they have a tough, home and home with Sweden. And Sweden's a tough team. They play well, they defend well, and Italy just couldn't get it done at home. So the Dutch are not there either. There's a few disappointments. Maybe that's why FIFA wanted to expand the World Cup to 48 teams in the future, so that all these teams they make sure they don't miss out.
I'm going to keep my entry in Canada, the Ottawa Senators, who started the year off on the ice, playing pretty well, maybe over their heads, but they almost made it to the Stanley Cup final. But if we backtrack a bit and refresh your memory, they had attendance woes in the playoffs, huge red flag, and that's continued into this season where they haven't been playing as well. People are not showing up to the rink. Their owner, Eugene Melnyk, is saying way too much and at the wrong times, i.e. recently at the outdoor game, he decides to completely sabotage a great event by getting into details about the team and their financial situation. And last but not least, Erik Karlsson, really the only star on that team, one of the best players in the league. He's a free agent in 2019, and at this point it's looking like Ottawa either can't afford him or he won't want to be there considering the gong show that they are currently.
Yeah, the surprise with Karlsson, he starts off the conversation by saying, I want a max contract or nothing, and it goes back to Melnyk, who basically says what?
Well, he says, we'll see what we can do here, but we might not have the money. And, if you're Karlsson, a guy who is underpaid right now based on his production and his value, you just roll your eyes and start thinking about where else to go. Now, Scott, let's go to your team. Who really fell off the rails this year?
I'm going to stick with Canada too and say the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They started the season 0-8, which when you only play 18 games is not great.
Yep.
They fired their head coach, which was weird because their head coach was also their general manager. So essentially Ken Austin fired himself. He brought in June Jones, an American coach who's well known for some successes in both the NFL and in U.S. college. But then he turned around and he wanted to bring in Art Briles as his offensive coordinator. Art Briles was most recently the head coach at Baylor University and was fired amid possibly the biggest sex assault scandal in U.S. college history. So the commissioner steps in to say, this is a really bad idea, guys. Eventually the organization sees the light and decides maybe they don't want to do this. So we end up with a Hamilton that's in sort of complete disarray, not only on the field, but off the field as well.
Yeah, another PR, I don't know if I'd call it a nightmare, but PR confusion is Johnny Manziel. There's been a lot of rumors of him being tied to the Ticats, but he's never shown up, and there's never been, any real completed deal there or any sign that he might actually show up.
Yeah, this was another one where the commissioner stepped in. It seemed like Manziel was going to get signed by the team, but now he's on some vague, has to, meet certain targets, I guess basically stay out of trouble. And if he does that, he might end up in Hamilton next year. So things could look up. Jones is already talking about him as possibly the quarterback of the future.
Now, last but not least, the NFL, it's been through, the league itself has been through a lot this year with Roger Goodell and what's happened with his tenure. And then also on the team level, a team like the Cleveland Browns are just really grasping at straws now as an organization.
Well, you could argue the whole NFL is struggling. There's every weekend there's stories about attendance not being where it once was. Other people will counter that and say the TV numbers actually aren't going down. It depends on who you talk to in that situation. But the Cleveland Browns, the team that's hit rock bottom for how many years now? Something like
100.
Their existence.
They didn't draft Carson Wentz. They passed on Deshaun Watson, all these guys, and I'm still not sure if they've even won a game this year.
They have not.
Oh, it's just, every year you can go through this, but I feel like 2017 was especially difficult for some certain franchises. For Curtis Larson and Scott Stinson, I'm John Mattis.